poised in perfect unison, synchronized subtle movements, an adorable adage. The romantic dart gape and honking of the male shag, its intense yellow mouth, dark iridescent cloak, tufts stand tall, emerald eyes shine bright, a beautiful courtship. Nature's unique choreography. Welcome to Springwatch.
Hello and welcome to Springwatch 2024, coming to you from the beautiful RSPB Reserve at Arne down here on the south coast of Dorset. Now, very sadly, it's the last programme in our first week, but rest assured we've got some cracking stuff and we'll be back for the next couple of weeks. And we've had a good start this week. Lots of our birds have started to fledge. Our blackcaps, there were 3 in the nest. We were a bit worried about one of them, but they all made it out. And then we've had brilliant new science. Spinning natterjack's eggs. We've explained why moths circuit around artificial lights after 2,000 years of misinformation. And then we moved on to social learning in bumblebees, showing that they have equivalent intelligence to humans. And of course, we peppered it with some cannibalism, where the peregrines were tearing up their own young and feeding them to their siblings. What about that?
And that's just the first week.
I
For
know,
goodness sake, there's been so much information and drama. I'm going to take you to all of our nests. So I'm going to show you some of our nests. Here we go. There's the variety of nests. And I know you'll think I'm mad, but I'm actually going to go to the one in the middle at the bottom, which is an empty nest. It's good news, it's good news. It's the nest of the siskins. And I'm going to remind you about our siskins. The nest was definitely our messiest nest. If you remember, it was minging, loads of fecal sacs all around the outside. 4 chicks ready to go yesterday at 6:21. The first one branched out. Tasted the big wide world, decided that actually it prefers to go back in the nest. And look closely, it kind of tumbles out and then it doesn't have a choice, it's got to fledge. So it left 3 in the nest overnight. They stayed there overnight till the morning, till 6:11. They were testing their wings, and then 2 of the braver ones decided to leave the nest and go out into the big wide world, join their sibling, leaving just 1 behind. Obviously, this was the one with less confidence. Eventually, it built up its confidence. 7:45, out it goes. Gone! There we go, all 4 siskins successfully fledged, and I love starting off with a good news story.
And with all those young fleeing our nests, we clearly need a few more to keep us going through the remainder of the series. So we've got some cameras on some new ones. One of them is a robin's nest. Let's go to it live now. You can just see one of the 5 chicks' eggs there on the left-hand side poking out. But we've been watching them very closely. Both adults have been busy. It's inside, like many robins that choose to build inside our garages and sheds. This one is in the RSPB's tool barn. As I say, 5 chicks, and they've been bringing in plenty of insect prey, including some large items. 4 spotted chaser dragonfly here. Can't imagine that didn't go down without a fight. And here, large yellow underwing, clearly spotted that moth, failed to hide somewhere. Both adults feeding the insect prey to those robins. And just in case you're wondering, the answer is long spades. There we are. And they seem to be going strong. Of course, we'll catch up with those next week.
I like that nest. You know, that's the first time we've had a robin's nest in 4 years.
Is that right?
Yeah, I like a little robin's nest. OK, you ready for the drama? Here we go. I'm going to give you a bit of drama with our chiff-chaff nest, I'm afraid. Here it is. It was one of my favourite nests. Look at those adorable little chicks poking their heads out. There were actually 5 of them. You can only see 4 there. And yesterday they were actually this was Wednesday, so ready to go. They're bursting out of that nest. They've really grown, they're stretching their legs, they're stretching their wings, they're flapping on the verge of fledging. They were fed really well. Those parents were feeding them every 1 to 2 minutes. So as I say, they were ready to go. Final feed there they get. Thought they were going to go the next day. Watching them that evening, Just keep watching. Watch that nest carefully. Watch, watch. Oh, oh my goodness. It was all over so quickly. They were predated. Very difficult to see what came in there. And we watched it back over and over again, and our nest watchers told us it was this. Look at it in slow motion. Again, still difficult to see in slow motion, but it was a fox. And you can see as it comes in, if we put it on pause, it turns round and you can see the tail. So the fox took the whole lot in one go. As I say, such a shame. It was such a lovely nest. And this morning, in comes the adult, the beak full of food, no nest there, it looks confused, and it flies off. So I'm very sorry to say they didn't make it.
So close, so close. But those nests are very close to the ground. Chiffchaff is about that high off the ground, so they're vulnerable to those ground predators. Things like badger and fox and stoat and rat, so on and so forth. In fact, our researchers looked through the literature today, found a paper published in 1997 that had looked at all of the BTO nest records for chiffchaff, and they found that 18.7% of the nest failures were down to fox or badger predation. So that's not an uncommon event. It was just unfortunate that those chicks were on the brink of going, and had they been able to scatter into the surrounding vegetation, then a few of them might have made it. As it was, you've got to think on the positive side, because somewhere this morning there was a very happy fox cub when the adult was regurgitating those chicks.
Oh, yeah, all right. We're
Okay,
taking the
just
gravity
saying. Okay, just saying.
It was a very dramatic night last night. If I take you to the song thrush nest, I mean, we didn't really get a chance to even introduce you to this nest, and it was such a beautiful nest. It was rigged on the 23rd of May. Adults both there with 3 chicks doing really well. They were strong, they were growing, and you can see those adults are coming in with beakfuls of food. Earthworms, caterpillars, spiders, they're scoffing them all down. So again, it was looking really good in the hood for this particular nest. There was still 1 egg that hadn't hatched, and the parents were brooding it. So there we go, 3 chicks, 1 egg, 2 adults, lots of food. Oh, I wish I could leave it there. But unfortunately, the story continues on, doesn't it, Chris?
Certainly does, with dramatic consequences. I have to tell you that the song thrushes had built their nest no less than 100 metres away from the goshawks, and this is what we saw. Here it is, the adults brooding on the nest. Yesterday, just after 6 in the morning, it wakes up with a start. It's clearly frightened, and it's thinking, I've got to get out of here, quick, and it does. And very shortly afterwards, the male goshawk comes in, snatches at all of the chicks in the nest. It manages to secure at least 1 in its foot, the others tumble to the ground. It then stands there for about a minute or so, quite pleased with itself. And this harvesting chicks from nest is very common in goshawks. They'll take small birds like song thrush, they'll take things like jays, then crows, buzzards, other raptors too. And here we see a short while afterwards the goshawk bringing a song thrush chick. Quite difficult to see, but we've zoomed in and checked. It is one of those chicks, comes into the nest. Now the male flies off quite quickly without dismembering that. So initially the young aren't taking much notice of it, but of course soon after the female comes in and then tears up that song thrush chick and starts feeding it to the young. We think that the male went back and retrieved those that it spilt from the nest, and as I say, this nest harvesting is not unusual at all. Early this morning, of course, as we see, the adults are confused, they bring the worms in, and there's nothing to eat those, so they do the decent thing and eat the worms themselves. Now the good news is, because there is some good news here, the goshawks have had a meal, but the secondary good news is that the song thrush will very likely build another nest and try again this summer. It's not too late for that.
And I know we all feel sorry for those chicks, but we mustn't demonise the predator. And if you think about it, we watch the song thrush bringing in the worms, feeding it to its chick. Are we feeling sorry for the worms? I bet most of you aren't, are you? So it's all the circle of life. And I'm sure a lot of people find that behaviour absolutely fascinating.
Fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff.
I think we need a bit of cheer. We need a bit of calm and a bit of cheer. Good job. We've got Yolo here. Yolo, it's nice to have you with
I've got a
us.
bone to pick with you too. I left you Monday morning, everything in safe hands. You said I turned my back and it's chaos and carnage.
Yeah, it was carnage. You've been out and about, of course, a bit further afield than I. You bought some fabulous stuff, but you're the man that keeps giving, because you're going to give us some more now, aren't you?
I am, yes. I've actually seen some cool stuff, and probably the coolest of all of them was this moth on the reserve just the other day. It's an eyed hawk moth. Identified, well, first of all, by that broad black line down its thorax, but also when it's alarmed and when it starts to vibrate, you see these two eyes appear on the hind wings. It's a big moth as well, about 8 centimetres across. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
That's
Absolute.
so cool.
Oh, it is a stunner.
Yeah.
And I've actually caught 1 or 2 of these in my own moth trap at home as well. And long lens camera person James Stevenson caught this on his camera just the other day. It's a female grass snake. See the broad head and that very distinctive yellow band. It's not quite as marked in females as it is in males. They're big things. They're our biggest reptile, and off she goes, probably hunting, probably go in the pools and the ponds later on, looking for frogs, toads, newts, fish. And of course, Chris, that is your favourite reptile,
Oh,
isn't it?
beautiful, aren't they? Absolutely stunning.
They are.
Love a grass.
Yeah, I do like them, but my favourite one is the adder. And I know you struggled with them last year because it was so hot. On my first morning here, I saw one go across the path, honestly. I really did. I know quite a few of you at home have been seeing them as well. I've been sending these lovely photographs in. Susan Fletcher sent this, so-called dancing adders, 2 males, just wrestling there for superiority. And Susie Bradbury sent this stunning portrait. Look at that eye, blood red eye. It's my favourite reptile. I do like them a lot, and we'll be looking at one of Anne's reptiles later on as well. And please do keep sending us in those photos and videos, because we love to see them.
And we love having you with us, back
Thank you.
with us
Thank you very much.
We feel like we feel like we're family now, don't we? And I think between us, we've had a smorgasbord of wildlife around Dorset on the south coast. Megan's also had some fabulous wildlife up on the west coast in the Isle of Bute. Megan.
Yes, I really have. And do you know what? I feel like this is perhaps one of my favourite bird species, which I'm going to talk to you about today. Now, I've come from the more rugged areas along the Isle of Bute to the town of Rothesay. It's a Victorian town, and it's got delicious cafes and probably the most friendly population of people I think I've ever met. It's been so lovely. But of course, you can see so much wildlife here as well. Everything from oyster catchers, foraging on the sandbanks, to juvenile shags, in and about the waves, hunting, and my favourite seabird perhaps, the gannet, the northern gannet, diving in, plummeting in the water up to 30 miles deep at 60 miles per hour, which is incredibly impressive. But those aren't the birds that I'm here to see today. I'm here to hopefully catch a glimpse of black guillemots, and to help me do that, we've got Steve Phillips, wildlife camera operator. Hello, Steve.
Hello.
How's it going?
Well, I can see a hole, but no birds. I think the nests are set well back in that pipe, about a couple of feet, so unless the bird comes right to the edge for a bit of fresh air or some sunshine, you're not going to see it. But there are several pairs around here, so we're hoping to see birds on the water. Maybe I'll keep my eyes open.
Fingers crossed, they're probably out foraging right now. Well, thank you, Steve. He's been out, of course, earlier in the week to get some up-close details of these birds as they're pair bonding, and also, of course, going into their diving habitats. Now, black guillemots prefer the rocky shore. They like artificial environments like this one, which is why you can see them nesting in Rothesay Harbour. And there's about 20,000 pairs around the UK, but they are only to be found in northwest Britain and in Ireland. And they are the most stunning birds. They really prefer those rocky landscapes where their prey, small crustaceans and fish, really nestle within. They do shallow dives to catch their food, and they are unmistakable. And what I love about seeing them in environments like this is that they're for everyone to see. You can see them in towns like this. And this male coming up behind the female, hoping he's going to get a bit of luck on his side, trying to impress her. She seems quite receptive at first, laying down, but he attempts to mate from the wrong angle and fails spectacularly. It's not always, you know, successful. Sometimes it's hit and miss, but they've got to try it out. And I don't like to anthropomorphise, put human emotion on things, but he skulks away with his head hanging high. Better luck next time. But they are wonderful to see when they're together, but fascinating to see them under the water, because as an auk species, as a seabird, they're able to dive down, and they're a benthic feeder, which is quite unusual for this type of auk. They'll dive down to really shallow depths to find their primary food source, something like butterfish. But you can see the bubbles on its back there, just showing how waterproof they are. But they look very different, I think, from our more common guillemots. Our more common guillemots have that white breast, and they're not very colourful, whereas the black guillemot puts it to shame with that orange gape and luminous orange fish as well. They are lovely little things. But what's interesting about them is that they're not only different in terms of the way they look, they're very different in their feeding strategies. So as I said, the black guillemot likes to dive down to really shallow depths. It means it's actually more productive in its reproduction, because it relies about 53% of the time on things like butterfish, which are more predictable. They like to hang around in these rocky crevices, and they're able to feed their chicks more frequently, whereas a guillemot can travel up to 211 metres away from its nest site to catch shoaling fish species, which is less predictable and of course much higher energy. You have to rise your heartbeat up, you have to put more energy into going out and foraging. It's just much more difficult, which is why the black guillemot here anyway is so successful. Now I know a man who loves black guillemots, but I'm curious because he's harsh on his rankings. So Chris, Michaela, out of 10 for the black guillemot.
Black guillemot, go on.
Go on, 8.
8?
Yeah.
For black guillemot?
I quite like
What
it.
a silky, velvety
That's
plumage.
quite high score, isn't
The
it?
red feet.
I must...
The red inside the bill.
Yeah, I like the red. I like the red. It makes them slightly comical, doesn't it? Okay, and you?
9.9, scoring them
Oh,
really high.
wow,
They're up
that
there with
is high.
avocet, they're up there with male sparrowhawk. I love a black guillemot. I'd go out with one.
Yeah.
I think I did.
Anyway, here at our very special place for many different reasons. But one of them is it's one of the few places that you can see all 6 of our native reptiles. Now, last time we were here for Springwatch, we managed to see 5 of them. As we walk over, I want you to name the 5.
OK, we saw the snakes. So we saw adder, smooth snake and grass snake. And we saw 2 of the lizards, common lizards and sand lizard.
So which one didn't we see?
We didn't see the slow
The
worm.
slow worm, but I'm going to give some love to the slow worm now because we've got a couple in here. We've got 2 adults and I'm going to show you the 2 different ones. Now, this is a female and you can see it's light and it has this very distinctive stripe here. I'm going to ask you to hold that for a second while I get the male out.
You have to be careful because they all totemise.
Well, actually, I mean, I've been given permission to hold them, but if you do see them, please don't pick them up. Not a good idea, just leave them be. This is the male, and you can see he's basically one colour, and he's got a much more defined head. So I've got the male, Chris has got the female. So there we go. They lived for about 20 years. They've been really misunderstood. People used to think they were blind, poisonous, fearsome creatures that you shouldn't go anywhere near. I mean, clearly they're not. They're not blind, they're not poisonous, they haven't got a sting, they're not fearsome creatures that you should avoid. And also, people used to think that they were snakes. Well, they're not snakes. They're called a slow worm. They're not worms, they're not snakes. So what are they? Well, they're legless lizards. And we're going to go over to this marvellous prop to show you why they're lizards and not snakes. Well, first of all, snakes can't blink, whereas lizards can. So you're going to show the old blinking. They've got an eyelid. So our slow worm is a lizard because it can blink.
Little wink. Something a little wink there, look.
Eyelid. Let's take a look at the tongues. Now, we all know that snakes have a forked tongue. Show the tongue.
OK, sorry. OK, all right, was too busy winking.
Our sand lizard.
Here's the forked tongue of the snake. Yeah.
Our slow worm that's a lizard, has a notched tongue. OK, and if you look at the neck, you see the snake has quite a defined neck. And our slow worm, which is a lizard, doesn't. That's typical of a lizard. And also the scales are very different. It's very smooth scales on our slow worm.
And we've got a representation of that here. So these approximate to snake scales. And you can see they're large, they're separated. Very often they're keeled. So they're quite rough to the touch. And beneath those, if you lift them up, there's a very flexible skin, and that allows snakes to swallow things which, as you know, are larger than the size of their head. If you contrast that with the scales of the slowworm, you can see that they're much smaller. Some of them appear triangular, some like a trapezium in shape. But then, if you put them under a very powerful microscope, this is what they look like. Along the edge of the scale here, you can see all of these little notches, and they're little thorny cusps. We call them denticles, and they are about 3 mu in length. That's 0.0003 of a millimetre. So they're very, very small indeed, but obviously they're there for a purpose. And we think that they're to give them some grip, because these animals are highly fossorial. They're constantly moving through the undergrowth. They're moving through soft soils and grass, which can shift and move. They're not solid objects that they're moving through where they can get a purchase like the snakes. These are flexible substrates. So they need to be able to grip them quite well, and we think that it's these denticles, these tiny little cusps on their scales, which give them the capacity to do that.
I've just gone back here so I can appreciate them, but if we're talking grip, they also have backward-facing teeth. Do you want to demonstrate? We've got some backward-facing teeth.
I've got backward-facing teeth. I certainly got those for you. Yep.
So
Okay.
that they can
there we are.
grip their prey, which is usually slimy, covered in mucus, things like snails and slugs and worms. So they're pretty fascinating creatures, aren't they?
And I should say that this is not an exaggeration. The teeth are very large for a lizard, and they're long and sharp, ideal for grabbing that slippery stuff, as you say. Now, what about slowworms? They're not one of our rarest reptiles. That would fall to the sand lizard and the smooth snake, of course. In fact, you might see them in your gardens, or certainly on allotments where there are lots of compost heaps. They like those. Surveys show that they occur in 300,000 kilometres squares in the UK. But nevertheless, sadly, like so many other things, they are declining. Principally habitat loss, particularly building on brownfield sites where they can prosper. So if you've got slowworms on your allotment, in your garden, then do everything you can to look after them. Make sure you've got those compost heaps, they like those. And if you're living in urban and suburban areas, quite a lot of them get predated by cats, and you can help protect them from that by having something for them to hide under. Some logs or some tin is ideal. That gives them the capacity to warm up early in the morning and move about into that substrate without exposing themselves to predation. So yeah, a bit of gardening for slowworms would certainly help.
Lots of ideas there, and you can do at least one of them every day, in fact, for 30 days, because tomorrow launches 30 Days Wild, which is the Wildlife Trust's annual challenge to do something for wildlife every day for 30 days. Do you know the other thing I'm going to suggest people do?
Go on.
Nothing. I know that sounds bizarre, but do nothing. Go and sit in an environment like this and just be quiet and listen. Listen to the sounds of nature. It's something that zoologist and musician Louis V.I. is trying to encourage us to do more of, to stop, to listen and really appreciate the sounds of the natural environment.
This is a forest in Wales on the edge of Eryri, formerly known as Snowdonia. Man, it's a beautiful thing to behold. But I'm not here to see. I'm here to listen. My name is Louis V.I.
I just wanna move outside for the sun and the moon.
I'm a music artist, but most don't know I'm also a zoologist.
I've always been a fan of music, but I've also been a nature geek. Nature, she's the original artist. Try telling a humpback whale or nightingale that music is human-made.
I want to lift the mic to nature. And what better time than now with the aliveness of the sound of spring? In a forest, there's not just any forest.
We are in a temperate rainforest right now. And just like its tropical cousin, it rains a lot, over 200 days a year. It used to cover 1/5 of the UK, but now it's very rare, sadly just down to 1%. I've never been anywhere like this before.
The moist environment makes it extremely biodiverse, with over 42 nationally rare species of lichen and 25 rare species of moss.
Being in this is a trip because I'm just looking in right here and we've got a whole forest right here in this moss. And there's so much life. All you need to do is stand still for a minute and you get to experience it. And it feels like a different place. It feels a special place.
Today, I want to tap into this incredible ecosystem to record the sounds I hear, but focusing specifically on the sounds we're at risk of losing, the species that are in decline.
It's important to shine light on these species because if we don't start listening out, one day we're going to wake up and there will be real silence because we've let them become extinct.
The plan is for me to take the sounds that I hear today back to the studio to make a track with them. But I'm not alone.
222.
To help capture these sounds, I've brought in the big guns.
All right, Gary.
In the form of Springwatch sound recordist Gary Moore. He's being a G and letting me borrow his parabolic microphone, which picks up distant sounds with serious clarity.
You hearing that?
Song thrush at the top of the tree there. The nuthatch behind us. Nice. There's that pied fly. There's that pied fly.
Oh, yeah. This is mad.
Pied flycatchers are temperate rainforest specialists, but like many migrating birds, their populations have decreased massively, with numbers almost halving since 1995.
Has the sickest rhythm. That bird's got a proper little groove going on. Oh, that's gorgeous, that is. Willow warbler.
Descending note.
Yeah, yeah.
Often mistaken for chiffchaffs, willow warbler numbers are declining most in England and Wales.
Not only we've got a micro habitat, we've got a micro soundscape,
Yeah.
basically.
I love that. Micro soundscape. Perfect for sampling. I have to say, the river sounds gorgeous. When you focus in on it, when it stops just being white noise. Oh, listen to that. Oh, listen to that. That is amazing.
I swear the cuckoo is one of those sounds we all recognise, but actually seeing or hearing them now is becoming an increasingly rare treat. Since the early 1980s, numbers have dropped by a staggering 65%. Just imagine these woods without that sound. How do you even explain that to your future kids?
Oh, man, that was amazing. You showed me a whole nother world there. I can't wait to get that into the studio.
Anytime, seriously, anytime.
Thank you, brother.
Bless you.
Let's get it. Nice one. Gary smashed it, so thanks to him, we can go back and start to make something nice, I think.
But before I leave this magical place, I reckon it's time we lay down a minute and touch base. Leave some space for Mother Nature to reply.
Can't lie, this is actually very comfy. I reckon I could take quite a surty nap here. You've just got to slow down to the pace of nature. Have a listen, and things start coming to you. When you hear birdsong, you tend to feel relaxed. But there's a deeper evolutionary message behind that because birds tend to sing and make noise when there's no predators around. So birdsong we've evolved to associate with safety. We think we live on a planet with nature, but we actually live on a planet as part of nature too. And I think the sooner we get closer to that, the more in harmony we can be.
I'm very pleased that Louis has come to join us this evening. Welcome.
Thanks
for
for
coming
so
along.
much. It's great to be
What
here.
a place, though.
Yeah.
That forest was beautiful.
Yeah, temperate
Absolutely.
rainforest. I've never been there before, and it was pretty mind-blowing.
And you were with the guru,
Yeah.
obviously Gary Moore, when it comes to sound recording.
Yeah.
But what I noted was at the top of that piece, you talked about the fear of silence. And then some of the figures that you quoted in terms of decline had happened in my lifetime.
Wow, yeah.
So I can remember woods like that being louder than you can hear them now, and that's scary.
Yeah, I mean, man, I would have loved to have heard it back then. And that's the thing, you know, we humans, we're part of nature, but we're also part of the problem with the biodiversity loss and climate change we're causing. And if we don't start learning to listen again, we actually run the risk of actually having a truly silent planet.
You were in that wood, you collected the sounds, you've made a track out of it. Talk us through that process.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what I was going to do with the sounds. It's hard to go up to Mother Nature, the original artist. But yeah, we got the cuckoo, we got the beautiful sounds of the river running through, and we got the pied flycatcher. And that's what really brought the inspiration for me, because I didn't know where we were going to go, but it had this rhythm in it that was almost like Afrobeat-y. And of course, it's a migratory species, and it's come all the way from Africa during the spring to Britain, but always comes back, and it's, you know, it shows that there's no borders in nature. It's something that we could learn a lot from as humans, I think, and it's beautiful. This bird is both British and African, and it brought the vibe for the tune, and I put bass to it, you know?
Yeah, so you've put bass to it, you've put some lyrics to it. We've got to listen out for those sounds then of nature while the bass and your voice is there.
Exactly.
So listen out for that and take it away.
Let's do it.
What does it feel like to wake up early? Sing to the dawn light.
Bird song for make me relax. Can't compete when making these tracks. Anxiety dash. Moss underneath on my back. Leaves like the prints on my hand. From the trees to the river to splash. Mother Nature calling me man. Mother Nature calling me man.
Mother Nature calling out there. Can't believe the humans get in this land. From the sea to the river inside. What we took, I don't understand. Yeah, time to rewrite all this land. We disturbed all the balances there. Bring the lynx, wolves and the bear, and more sounds will appear.
Hey, my birdie, what does it feel like to wake up early? Sing to the dawn light, like hey.
I love that so much. You know, for me, combining nature and music, I think is so important. The power of connecting with new audiences, the power of getting nature into music, to art, all of those creative spaces could not be underestimated, and he's done an absolutely brilliant job with that. Anyone with any musical capabilities is, well, has my admiration immediately. Now, another animal that lives around the shoreline of the Isle of Bute lives just over this way. It's the enigmatic, beautiful otter, and earlier on in the week I went out to go and see them for myself. Oh, they're right here. We've managed to find, not one, not two, but 3 otters, because I'm feeling very greedy when it comes to seeing them. It's amazing seeing family units like this. You've got a mum and 2 cubs. The cubs look pretty much fully grown. Had to just move down the shoreline here because these otters are feeding whilst on the move. And based on what I can see, they're definitely gorging themselves on all that Bute has to offer. It's a proper buffet for them. Seeing those dynamics between them, you get a real insight into their really secretive and elusive lives, which otherwise you just never get the chance to see. Oh, look at them. All 3 of them have just got up on a rock, posed perfectly, had a bit of a shake, and gone back into the water again. Oh, it's so beautiful. it was a magical experience seeing this family of otters, you know, knowing that I was there, of course they did, but obviously not causing any disturbance and staying back, but being trusted enough that they go about their daily business was really lovely. Always worth getting up for wildlife, that's what I say all the time. And of course there's about 8,000 otters around Scotland, and 50% of them are coastal, which is the ones that we see here on the island. Now, local naturalist and photographer John Williams goes out almost daily actually to photograph these beautiful mammals and get some really interesting shots about what they're eating. So they see a variety of different things, everything from scorpion fish, lump suckers, cat sharks, which is amazing because they've got very, very thick skin, and even shags, as big as a shag. Look down there, it looks like a juvenile on the bottom right-hand side. Phenomenal photographs, and of course they're making the most of their marine environment to use all of the prey that is available to them. Elsewhere, freshwater otters are eating very different things, especially in mid-Wales, and we were sent this fascinating video. So this is an otter who is trying to eat a toad. Now, this is entirely new to me. I mean, they do other places in Europe eat some toads, but they have to do it very carefully because toads have these toxins, these glands on their back producing these toxins that make them unpalatable to predators. They've got them on the backs and on their eyes, so a predator really doesn't want to eat a toad unless it knows how to manipulate it. Now, most otters perhaps eat the legs of toads and leave the body, but there's a very specialised behaviour that some otters have learned how to do. Check out this photograph and brace yourself, because it's bizarre. Now, this photo was sent by Will Lewis. This is a toad which has been turned inside out. The otter has carefully manoeuvred it, taken out all of its insides, and left what can only be described as a bit of a horror scene on the back garden. But such an interesting, specialised behaviour, and they think that they're prone to eating toads in this area, perhaps because there's less fish available to them. It's not their preferred source of food, toads, but they will go for it, of course, if there is nothing else to eat. But you have this difference between freshwater and coastal otters, and we're seeing that in their behaviour, but also in their morphology and how they're evolving. So here I've got a diagram of the otter skulls, combining the freshwater and the coastal. Now, you have to get your eye in because some of the differences are tiny. You need lasers and specific microscopes. But what you can see is that freshwater otters have a narrower and kind of shorter snout, enables them to be more streamlined in the water, but to also catch their fast-moving prey, things like salmonoids, so perhaps brown trout or salmon. And they also have got kind of eyes in proportion to their body. But then you take a look at coastal otters. Now, they've got a slightly shorter snout, but their zygomatic arch around the eye is a lot wider. They've got a taller cranium, and it's about increasing the surface area so that more muscle can attach to the skull and attach to the lower jaw, creating a bigger bite force. And of course, coastal otters are making the most of lots of things, as you just said. Cat sharks, incredibly tough skin. Shags, lots of bones, and things like crustaceans as well. So they're developing a bigger bite force than the freshwaters. I find that personally really interesting, how these animals develop on a kind of a daily basis, and we see otters out and about all the time, but never really see them changing like that. And this is when science comes into its own, because we learn so much by looking at the minute changes of the same species but in different environments, and we can see how they navigate these challenging habitats to very different habitats in such an expert way. They're beautiful mammals, and of course the numbers are increasing. They were historically persecuted, and the fact they're back here and doing so much better is really exciting. So now on from one amazing predator, both coast and marine, to the birds in the sky. Fantastic predators themselves. Let's head over to Yolo and Chris back down at Arn.
Thanks, Megs. Good to see that skull differentiation there. People always think that, you know, evolution stopped, and of course it hasn't. Evolution is taking place, as you say, every single day. And those differences at the moment are within the same species. Who knows, in X thousand years' time, we might have two separate species of otter, one freshwater, one marine.
It's got the pinnacle of evolution. Now, earlier on, we saw the goshawk take the song thrush chicks and take them back to the nest to feed the young, but we have cameras on two other raptor nests as well. So let's go live straight away to the kestrels to see what's going on. Oh wow, we've got the adult female in, feeding the young. And the young are growing really well. 5 young in there now, of course. You see the feathers starting to emerge. They look like the female for the first few months of life, and A lot of those, I reckon they'll be in there for another, what, 10 days maybe, Chris?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
But we've had a lot of drama this week, so let's just catch up with the start of the week, 26th of May. We had 6 chicks in there, one quite a bit smaller, the runt. The nest box you see there on a building here on RSPB Arn Reserve, and you see the youngster between the adult's leg. It's a feisty little thing. It's not going to give up. It's going to fight for survival. And they brought in a variety of food. I think that might have been a thrush, actually. Bringing in a slow worm. Look at that. And I bet he entered that hole as well. Brought in a lot of voles, of course. They're vole specialists. Good vole habitat around here. And a sand lizard. Nothing is sacrosanct for these kestrels. And the male comes in. And that's a bankful, I think, but they got a little bit more than they bargained for with this one here, because that bankful actually is not quite dead. They start to peck at it slowly. See, it's still breathing. Now, I half thought that the vole might just get up and run out, but oh no, they started to peck at it again. But the youngster, it bit the youngster on the talon, but it didn't make it, unfortunately, and it was soon dispatched. One of the chicks just took it down and ate it whole. See the youngster still battling away there. And they brought in a shrew, the adults, as well. Now, not many predators will take on shrews because it doesn't taste too good. And watch the reaction of this chick. Shakes its head, really doesn't like what it's eating. A bit like me eating lettuce. And has another peck. And eventually it thinks, right, enough's enough. It's all going down in one.